sent me, shoot, gather the spirit instead of here we have gathered. Shoot.
Good morning, everybody. Come have a seat. Good morning, everybody. Have a seat. And we'll begin. We're going to do things a little differently today for the first time. Notice I rang the gong to get you all ready. And we're also going to put the announcements before we start the service. So let's see how that works out. So our first announcement is join us every first and third Tuesdays at Stewart Memorial Park downtown at noon for the brown bag lunch. It's become very, very popular, and a lot of people show up, and it's a lot of fun. You can gossip your hearts out. The book club is on Wednesdays via Zoom at 11 o'clock, and John Moore is the person that leads that. They're starting a new book, I guess it's this week, My Brilliant Friend. So if you haven't gotten your book and you want to join, please do so and contact John Moore. And he's not here today, but if you need help, come see one of us. Current events that are usually on Friday with our wonderful Reverend Bob MacDonald is canceled this Friday. So do not sign on. Fourth, Carol York is coming next week. The Reverend Carol York, which many of us know, but it should be quite an interesting sermon because she's going to be talking about the upcoming decision that's coming down the pike on abortions. So please come and share this with her. Debbie has an announcement that she would like to make, and she's going to come up to that mic and tell you.
Just a note that I know many other people besides myself are outraged and saddened and disgusted and worried about the mass shootings in schools. And as a former elementary school teacher, some of the suggestions that have been made, like just arm the teachers, are ludicrous. But there are currently underway a lot of discussions in the Senate about some gun safety legislation. And I thought it might be nice, if anyone is interested, I have postcards, I have pens, I have lists of senators' names, and whether you want to send a note that just says thank you to some of the senators like Chris Murphy who are really pushing this, or whether you want to send a note to others saying something else, all you have to do is fill it in and put the name of the person you want to send it to. I'll fill in the address even for you, and I'll put stamps on it. And for every postcard you do, I have Hershey Kisses. So a kiss for every postcard. Now you can tell I was an elementary school teacher because I'm bribing you, but I thought it might make you feel like at least we can do something. Our UUA president on the website, says we don't have to live like this. We should feel safe in schools and movie theaters and stadiums and churches and at funerals where all these shootings are taking place. So maybe if we at least have our voice heard, it could make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Now we will start the service with our wonderful Jackie doing the prelude.
Okay.
Hopefully.
I was going to play something from the Renaissance period called Let Gay Ones and Great, which is a strange title. It's a little spirited, but due to what's going on in the world right now, I thought I would play something by Shostakovich, who was very oppressed by the regime in Russia, as was, Prokofiev. In case anybody wants to read about either of those great artists, you'll find out that some governments continue to to really make it difficult for musicians and poets and artists and writers, from Stolchenitsyn to whomever. And this is a beautiful piece of music, and it shines through the oppression. So it's called Preludium No. 1 by Dmitri Shostakovich. And this is a honed-down version. There are no piano players available right now, so I'm just going to play it with myself.
Thank you, Jackie. Sad but beautiful. Good morning. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universal Congregation in Stuart, Florida. Today is June 5th, 2022. My name is Ronnie Dembowski, and I am your worship associate for today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, ethnicities, ages, and backgrounds. It is wonderful to see all our vaccinated members in the sanctuary, and to those on YouTube too, hi. To be put on our mailing list or to find out more information about us, go to our website at tcuuc.org. That's tcuuc.org. There you will find a link to our online newsletter. Now, would you please silence your cell phones? I'll give you a minute. A big thanks to those who help us with the service. Jackie Robbins for her beautiful music, our greeters, our ushers, and our host, Karina Poloni, and our tech whiz, Chris McGann. Joanne and Marguerite, who usually do coffee and cookies, aren't here, so we had some substitutes doing the cookies today and the coffee, so you're still getting them. Thank you for helping out. Now it's time to light our chalice, and our Reverend Bob MacDonald will light it while I say these chalice lighting words. By Andrew Pakula. Let there be light, the light of joy, the light of happiness, and the light of contentment. May it illuminate our paths and fill our lives with peace. Let there be dark, for it is from our dark places that we are brought forth, tired and tested. And, and there was day, and there was night. And there was joy, and there was sorrow, and it was good. My opening words are from the famous UU World, which we seem to be using a lot lately. And this is from a conversation. And this is just a little section that the Reverend Jan Crow said, and it just hit me, so I want to share it. Personally, living on the edge, pushing the envelope, and actually living with faith is what is hoped for, but not yet seen. That is where and how I feel most alive. And for me, comfort has its place, just not the comfort that comes at somebody else's expense. I need the exhilaration that comes with authenticity and creation, and I need the comfort of soft blankets, good food, and coffee. The comfort of connection, of time in nature, of things that feed and nurture and replenish my spirit and bring me joy. I'm doing my best to be in the both and of living on the edge with all of its joys and fear, and making space for the comfort of the sunrise and the sunset, of coffee and biscuits and hot tea. When it comes to Unitarian Universalism, living into our faith, there is no question to me about where we need to be. How can we live in this country and not be on edge? And on the edge, when our faith calls us to value each life as whole and holy and worthy. How can we be anywhere but on the edge right now? Now it's time for us to recite our affirmation, the first verse, and to sing through our Mass the second verse. We'll wait till it comes up on the screen.
Doesn't the hymn come first?
Huh?
Doesn't the first hymn come?
Does it? Wait a minute, I might have made a mistake. Oh, I did. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go back to the next other page. Invite newcomers.
I always ask the assistants to mess up a little bit because it makes me look better when I do. What are you sorry about, dear Ronnie?
That I missed the last sentence on my page. It is the hymn.
But have you invited the new people to come and?
Let's just go on with the
Okay,
order.
that's all.
we
All
announced
right.
it.
Okay,
The new hymn.
the first hymn is 360. Here we have gathered.
Okay, and since we do not have a pianist today, a piano player, sorry, sometimes people misunderstand me, it will just be cello and you all. So I'll do a little introduction, and I'll guess the tempo. May
a little out of order, but now I'd like to welcome any visitors who are joining us today. We're so happy that you're here, and we would love to hear from you how, if you feel comfortable only, how you found us and who you are. And if you could come up to the mic, if there's anybody that feels comfortable, and share that with us, we'd be very happy to hear from you. Is there anybody that's new that would like to come and share that? Okay, if not, hopefully you'll stay for coffee hour and we can get to know you then. Now it's really time for the affirmation. Okay, we will speak the first verse, and then we will sing the second in our masks. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Now is the time in our service when we share matters of joy or sorrow or concern. We do this in the hope that as we listen to each other, each will know they're supported and heard. We ask that they be personal and that they be brief. In other words, not announcements. Who has something that they would share? Ronnie does. You can use this if you want.
This is my excuse for getting things wrong. No, not really. I had a very difficult day and night yesterday because my son, who a lot of you have heard about before, came home from work and his neighbor downstairs was watching his dog. She let the dog out before his car had stopped, and he couldn't stop in time, and he ran over and killed his dog.
Oh, God.
If many of you will remember that his other little dog died 6 months ago, was when he was bitten by a coyote. Anyhow, he's very distraught. He lives in California. I can't get there to help him because he has a lot going on and he has to work. So just keep him in your thoughts. He's had a very difficult life, and this is another sadness in his life. So Janet's going to move a stone for me. Thank you.
Well, you all feel that. Anyone else? Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Burt. I promise I will not get up every week with an announcement of our situation at home, but many of you know that Joe had a stroke 2 months ago. And it looked for a while like it was never going to have any good news attached to it. But today we had a situation where at 7:30 this morning, he got out of bed and shuffled his own way into the bathroom. So I think of it as the good news is his physical therapy and other efforts that all his caregivers are making is working, and the bad news is that it's working.
Well, we're good always glad to hear the good news. Fred?
I have a joy and a sorrow. I'm Fred Dembowski. My granddaughter, little Allie, now known as Haven, yesterday went to her junior prom, and she looked absolutely lovely.
Oh, good. Anyone else? Linda, go ahead.
This is Joy. Dan and I spent most of yesterday bringing our wonderful, wonderful neighbor, Lou Marshall, who was a New York City fireman for many years. He's 86, and he's been battling cancer and everything for the last 2 years. And being such a healthy person, he came home from the hospital yesterday, and we sat there for an hour with them celebrating. Thank you.
Good. A stone? Anybody else? Well, while you're there, Linda, move one more for those that we haven't said out loud. We'll put you to work. Thank you. This meditation is by Robert Weston. It's entitled Summer Meditation in the back of our hymnal. Now blows the wind with soft, relaxing warmth. The sun beats down, the schools are out. Children swarm in the playgrounds and the streets, and eager city folk, vacation-bound, crowd the broad highways. The lakes and seashores lose their solitude, and all the world seems turned to carnival. What of ourselves? There could be now deep peace, a time for soul-searching. We might turn to examine our own lives, to sort and probe our tendencies of thought, to sift the true from false in the things of doubt, the beautiful from ugliness unmarked. The sun beats down. It is a time for pause. Even the trees seem resting for a time, as if to meditate and gather strength for the more strenuous times that lie ahead. And shall not we? Here's the unfinished clay, half molded, that still waits on us. To think what we have been, and as we are, still yet have to become. Robert Weston. And now moments of silence. And now, Spirit of Life, which is 123, we hum a verse, we sing a verse through our masks. We hope that all who come here experience a spirit of generosity. And now we invite your generosity because we need it to keep going, our morning offering. It's always a great joy to welcome new people to become members of our congregation. So several weeks ago, Pat Malloy introduced himself to us and told us that he was from Troy, New York, my hometown. And I assured him that that wouldn't be held against him. We've gotten to know him, and he and I have shared some stories of old haunts we went to. I forgot to ask you, Pat, he came from a part of Troy not far from where we stayed with our grandparents. Did you ever go to that theater on 112th, Bijou? Was it Bijou or Bijou? Or?
Bijou, yeah. I did. One of my uncles and aunts lived right down the street from me.
Well, we were there often, just as a way to get away and to enjoy movies. You definitely qualified to become a member here. Please come up and sign our book. Right here, just sign your name, and there's no small print. Pat is a retired lawyer, so I had to do the wording just right. Yeah, you can put your address later. Do you want to just say a word about the kind of law you practiced and your daughter and who she is and where she is? Sure.
Add the mic, please.
Here's the mic right over here, Ted.
Good morning. I'm about to join your church, and I'm very happy to be able to do that. I've visited several times and was impressed by the generosity and openness of the people who have come here. But Reverend Bob said I can have a word. Normally he says, don't go too long. So in 25 words or less, I'm going to tell you a brief history of my being. We all know the admonitions that Reverend Bob gives if you go too long. He never tells you what he's going to do, or I don't know that he's ever done anything, but I don't want to be the first victim. So, as Reverend Bob said, we both grew up in Troy, New York at about the same time. Bob went to the public school, School 5 in Troy. I went to Sacred Heart Catholic School, elementary. He then went on to Troy High, and I went on to Catholic High. At that point in time, he decided he had enough of Troy, I think. He decided to go to West Virginia, and he eventually became a minister, a man of faith, a leader of the faithful. And we're very grateful that he did that, because his qualities of leadership and relating to people are still quite evident. I went on to another Catholic school, a college near Albany in Troy, finished there, and then went on to law school, which was a public school, my first public school. But I always worried about the kids in the public schools, that they weren't getting any religious education like I was every day. And so somehow Bob not only survived that, but exceeded in becoming a very religious type person. So we are grateful for that. I practiced law for about 4 or 5 years in Albany, and then moved to Florida. I was probably one of the first immigrants from the north among this congregation that got here to Florida in 1979. The primary motivation at that time was my wife's health condition. She had very severe rheumatoid arthritis. It was very difficult to do anything in the winter to get around, and it was risky getting around in the wintertime up north. So we moved to Palm Beach County, had a job in West Palm Beach, and continued to practice down here until the middle of the 1990s. So I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm part of your group now, officially, and hope to be an active participant and a contributor to what you people do.
We're going to see to that. And now I think there's a video. I hope there's a musical video.
One of my favorite hymns, "Be Still My Soul." So, and I want to thank Kendra as well for accompanying me. Sorry if I'm a little nervous singing in front of you. I listen to you about every Sunday, so just want to thank you guys so much for providing everyone with such beautiful music. But, here you go. I guess. I apologize in advance, but be still my soul, the Lord is on thy side, with patience bear shall be bright at last. Be still, my soul, the waves and winds still know His voice who ruled them while He dwelt below. Be still, my soul, the hour is hastening on, when we shall be forever with the Lord. When disappointment, grief, and fear are gone, sorrow forgot, love's purest joys restored. Be still, my soul, and change and tears are past, all safe and blessed, we shall meet at last.
It certainly feels to me like we are at war or under attack from three fronts. COVID has not gone away, and the news this week was that the Omicron attacked senior people more or worse than the previous variants, and worse than previously known. The second front is Ukraine, a war that seems as close and potentially disastrous as the previous world wars. If it was started and is continuing to be led by a madman with nuclear weapons and fantasies of an old empire returning, yes, hard to feel the bell is just tolling for Ukraine. Again, columnist Thomas Friedman has observed, Putin has contributed to the divisions in America, and will we ever be the United States again? But he observed that Putin has made Europe more united in a hurry, with Germany changing a post-war policy against providing weapons to anybody, and Sweden and Finland dropping neutrality toward NATO and wanting in. That's a stronger Europe than we've ever seen. So, COVID and Ukraine, and lastly, what feels like a war front and an attack on all of us is what's happening to our democracy and our democratic way of life, and what we could all lose. It was reported this week that huge numbers of people are being recruited and trained to challenge voters as they plan to vote or arrive to vote. What is this but harassment and intimidation? We could brush it off, but look what has happened to elected and appointed election officials across the country. It isn't clearly enough of a law, or a law with teeth, that freedom of speech does not include the right to threaten election officials and their families. And partisans, one party, were allowed to take over voting machines and spend months with them. Who would have thought this could happen in America, where we have seen people we voted for win and lose, and you accept losing, and your worst threat is to yourself. Try harder, work harder next time. This has not been the stuff of sermonizing for me in the past, but I'm a lot more concerned about the future than I have ever been. I can hear FDR ringing in my ears and in our history, the only thing we have to fear. Many of us have known fear to be paralyzing, so we have to move past it to do what we can, what the moment in history calls for. So the head of our UUA calls UUs to the General Assembly with the trumpet sound to meet our moment. How do we still our fears and move on together to what the moment calls for? How do we muster what we must to secure the future for those coming after us who deserve at least the shot we got? We have to go to our well and drink from what has given us strength before. So silence, stillness become a spring in the desert, which might become a well of strength, of wellness. There's a line in the Hebrew scripture I've used as a centering tool many times from Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. If I go to UU now and get mired in know what, know who, well, then for me it doesn't work, because I'm not looking for inner dialogue. I have too much of that, but I'm looking for strength. So I've got to be still and know. And then, like a Quaker, see what I know and where I might be led. I remember once asking a priest for his surest map to get to his promised land. And he said, if you are a seeker of the spiritual life, you have to have a high tolerance for the desert, because you will find yourself there often, metaphorically speaking. Christianity, from which both are used, sprung. Christianity began in a war-torn Roman Empire. Persecution and execution for what you believed led to two understandably human responses: escapism and vengeance. If you see everything you believe and everyone you believed in tormented and tortured, and people you love and revere tortured for their faith, you have to believe two things. It will be made right someday, and the tormentors or evil will pay. So when war makes earth into hell, you have to, or so badly want to believe, just wait. If you can't believe that justice will prevail in the end somewhere, someday, then mentally, humans can't either. That's what that last book of Christian scripture is about, Revelation, or the revealing. It tries to explain what's impossible to explain. It seems like the bad guys are winning and the good guys are suffering. There's really another world coming in which justice will prevail and the fortunes of the suffering and the good fortunes of our enemies will be reversed. The final and lasting reversal of fortune. But what about those who suffered and died before that reversal could happen? The trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. The ultimate, alternate reality. That last book of Christian scripture has had quite a shelf life, and the book series Left Behind became, after the Bible, of course, the best-selling series in all of America. Escapism and vengeance, thriving millennia later. Those who believe that way seem to have a special fondness for Israel, the Holy Land, where they think the second coming of Christ and the great reversal will begin. But in their belief system, Jews and Muslims and whoever's there get a chance to convert. And if they are unwilling, they burn on earth along with all the other non-believers. Escapism and vengeance. Heaven and hell have served that human need for a long time without much support from Hebrew or Christian scripture. Now, this is an aside from which I just can't help myself. I always look at Maureen Dowd on Sunday morning to see if there's some treasure you really do need to hear. This morning, her topic, Johnny and Amber. I thought, oh no, I can't read that. You all don't need to hear any more about that. But I said, in generosity, read a paragraph or two. Maybe there's something in it. And this was the gem in it. She quotes John Milton. You've heard this before. I've heard it before, but not like I heard it this morning. John Milton. The mind is its own place, and in itself, it can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. And she adds, it is within our own power to be happy or to self-destruct. Heaven and hell have served the human need of escapism and vengeance, but there's not much support from Scripture in it. Obvious picture talk, metaphor, is taken literally for comfort's sake, for them that find it comforting. Jesus tells the story about a poor man who begs at the door of a rich man, and in the afterlife, the poor man rests in Abraham's bosom, and the rich man, called Dives or riches, is in a lesser place for eternity. And this is a story that Jesus tells, and in that wind-up, the rich man realizes, I should have done something better with the beggar at the door, because he can somehow see what has taken place. And the clearest support of heaven is in the line from the Lord's Prayer, which is a mistranslation. The line is, who art in heaven, which sounds like place, location, but it actually means our Father who art holy. So many have said to me, they have to believe they will be with loved ones again. And I hoped it was comforting to hear me say, yes, and you are now. People find strength and comfort in places They may have thought they outgrew. A man who came to our congregation and to our Wednesday book discussion 10 or 12 years ago told our group that he remembered the day in a foxhole in World War II, I think in France, when he prayed to the Virgin Mary to help him survive that day. We were struck that he shared that with us, and glad he did. All we could do was listen in awe. No one wanted to say, "But you're you." The memory still gave him comfort and strength. Warfare generates weird spiritualities. QAnon is such in our time. People who feel at war with parts of American culture and must come to the defense of children and defeat perceived enemies. Where do you find nourishment for your soul? I go to music a lot. The Finlandia tune of that hymn is one of the strong ones. Be still, my soul. It's such for me. Another one I love, it's not in our hymnal for good reason. It ends with, it is well with my soul. The words go on about blood sacrifice and the darkness and death of our sinfulness, so cancel the words and just, it is well with my soul, meaning I want to be well with my soul. I'm paying attention to that. Music appeals to all of us differently, but the need for such nourishment is pretty much the same. Nature is a place of continual refreshment. In our previous house, I developed an audience of ducks who appeared pretty regularly at 7:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. and waited patiently. What I spread for them was squirrel food from Walmart, mostly, dried corn kernels. They didn't know or care that it was squirrel food. In our new place, we have so enjoyed the sandhill cranes. 2 adults led 2 babies soon after we moved in. In a month, the babies were almost as tall as the parents. Then one day, there were 2 parents and 1 young, and that's the way it has been since. So just like with our adored pets at home, nature is a package that includes danger and death. We don't know when we fall in love, even with pets, how vulnerable that makes us. Florida is wonderful, full of wonder, because just like with those ducks, we can choose to show up in places we have been fed. Spirituality is different for all of us, probably reflecting our roots and places of nurture we have found on our journeys. We come to this community of faith to find kindred spirits, kindred seekers. It's nourishing to hear where others have found sustenance. I'm also always interested to hear about early bird specials, so long as there's a choice when we get there. Spirituality is an indefinable part of us. The last thing we want to hear is that yours should be like mine. I've heard many times in another denomination, we come here for religion, not to hear about needed change in society. Spirituality and society are separate. Well, not for some of us. And for me, the good thing about this community of faith is that you aren't in the foxhole alone. And if you can't figure out how we are going to fight for what we believe in, well, somebody here will tell us. Doing too little got us here in the first place. We've been hearing for some time that we are in a mental health crisis. And now, long COVID. WTH, long COVID? As if 2+ years and 1 million people dying isn't long enough. Really? And clouds over polarized America. And what we thought was a sound construction by our founders, 3 branches of government, checks and balances, but some nefarious onslaught seems poised and ready. We've got to tend to our wells and wellness, and as gentle and not pushy as we want to be, a wake-up call has come. And indeed, it tolls for thee and me. Maybe we're going to have to be we like we've never been before. Our closing hymn is number 100, Peace Like a River. It has 6 verses. I couldn't decide, so 6 verses.
And there will be no piano player. So I'll just give you an intro.
This reading is by Mark Morrison Reed as Ronnie extinguishes the chalice. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Mark Morrison Reed.
Go in peace.
I think I